This page is the cover of Total 64, proudly proclaiming itself the world's best-selling N64 magazine. It's a vibrant showcase of N64 goodness, with Mario leading the charge from Mario Kart 64, joined by Donkey Kong, Wario, Peach, and Yoshi. They're hyping up the multiplayer madness of Mario Kart's arrival in the UK, with a full review and player's guide inside. Also featured prominently are Duke Nukem 64, described as a Doom beater, with exclusive new screenshots, and War Gods, the N64's first 3D fighter, also getting a full review. There's even a free Turok comic, Part 2, thrown in, and a chance to win Mario Kart plus 2 extra controllers. Looks like they've packed quite a punch into this issue. This page is a full-on dive into the world of UFOs and aliens, promoting a publication called Sightings with talk of secret bases and interviewing little green, or blue men. Definitely not a game page then. This page welcomes you to the Total 64 experience, featuring our old pals Yoshi and Bowser from Mario Kart, looking suitably competitive in their karts with balloons in tow. The editorial piece itself is delightfully self-aware, the editor practically apologizing for the brief intro because they've been absolutely hammered by the latest N64 games, caught mid-race and lamenting being struck by that most infamous of items, the dreaded red shell. Apparently, the team has been suffering from dangerous levels of addiction, sinking countless hours into ISS Soccer 64, Star Fox 64, and naturally, Mario Kart 64. They've been pulling all-nighters on the Wario circuit and delving into Star Fox 64's secrets. IS Soccer 64 has even become the game of the month, purely due to the sheer volume of playtime it's eaten up, leading to league organization and tournament semi-finals. All this intensive gaming, they claim, is simply for your benefit, as they're busy crafting comprehensive player guides. Sounds like a tough job, eh? This page is clearly the contents, kicking off with a massive picture of Mario looking particularly pleased with himself in his kart, which makes sense given how much playtime he was eating up on the previous page. The magazine is absolutely gushing about Mario Kart 64, saying if you were keen on the SNES one, you'll be totally bonkers for the N64 version. Just remember to pack your pads apparently. They even show a screenshot of the chaotic racing action. Below that, they introduce the N64's first 3D fighter, War Gods, featuring a rather intimidating green chap, and ask if it lives up to the console's legendary status. Then there's Killer Instinct Gold, with a snap of TJ Combo, questioning if the arcade classic holds up on the N64 and deserves its spot. Finally, they cover the rather obscure Wonder Project J2, a Japanese title about a robotic orphan, which they seem to embrace despite the language barrier. Looks like they're ready to dig into a diverse mix of titles, asking the tough questions about quality. Oh, and there's a competition to win some Mario Kart and Turok swag too. Worth checking out pages 30 and 77 for that. This page is the magazine's content spread, making it easy to see what cracking stuff is inside. Kicking off with the first look section, we've got a shiny yellow Lamborghini for Lamborghini 64, suggesting a rather swish racing experience. Next up is Duke Nukem, looking every bit the alien-busting hero, and something called Body Harvest, which features a rather fearsome-looking monster chap. Finally, under first looks, Kirby makes an appearance, bizarrely riding a skateboard in Kirby's Air Ride. Over in the UK showcase, they're shining a spotlight on Mortal Kombat Trilogy with a shot of Kitana, promising a full review including all those brutal moves and fatalities. They're also tackling ISS Soccer, offering advice on how to get the most out of that classic footy game, and show off a couple of polygonal players having a kickabout. EA Ton. Connecting nicely to the previous page's enthusiasm, there's a tips section dedicated to Mario Kart 64, promising track guides, shortcuts, and character profiles, essential reading for mastering the chaos. Elsewhere, a Turok comic is featured, continuing an adventure apparently worthy of the game itself, complete with a cool dynamic drawing of the main man himself. The standard regulars section is also laid out, covering the editorial, news, reviews, peripherals, cheat zone, and all the usual gubbins you'd expect. Looks like a packed issue. This page kicks off with a bang, leading with Unreal news. It sounds like a right graphical powerhouse, being touted as GT Interactive's Quake beta on PC, set to drop later in the year. They're raving about the lighting and shadows, claiming it's the most realistic stuff seen in a game, where you can even use enemy shadows to detect their approach. Clever! There's no official word on an N64 version, but the magazine hints that talks are happening. The screenshots show off some moody corridors and monstrous chaps that look rather menacing. On the left we've got the European release dates rundown for 1997, listing a load of upcoming N64 games and when you might finally get your hands on them, including titles like Mario Kart 64, GoldenEye, and Star Fox 64. Down below, there's a look at something rather more quirky, Tongue Twister, also known as Chameleon Twist. Apparently it was shown at a Japanese show, and is around 60% finished. The big draw here is the protagonist's rather bizarre ability to use his tongue for pretty much everything, from squeezing enemies to spitting them about. It sounds absolutely mad, but they suggest it could be a hit, especially with a multiplayer battle mode focusing on tongue-based shenanigans. This page kicks off with a big, wanted, poster for Dead or Alive, which is causing quite a stir straight from the arcades. This fighting game is all about grappling, counterattacks, and some rather eye-catching character models, especially the ladies, apparently boasting the most realistic curves ever seen in a game. It sounds like a proper beat-em-up with ring-outs and explosive throws, definitely one to watch if it makes the jump to the N64. Down below there's a look at Ubisoft's platformer Tonic Trouble, previously known by the working title Ed. It's got a bit of a wild premise. An alien spills some peculiar liquid on Earth, causing absolute chaos. Your job is to tidy up the mess in this 3D platforming adventure. They reckon it could be something special, drawing comparisons to Rayman and even Mario 64. The page also features lengthy lists of upcoming N64 games and their release dates for both the US and Japan in 1997 and early 1998, covering a whole load of titles from various genres. This issue of N64 magazine features a list of upcoming Japanese releases, a DV guide for converting N64s to play both Japanese and American games, though PAL still requires an adapter, and a recap of recent competition winners. Winners received a Mini Boy 55 LCD game and Turok, Dinosaur Hunter, among other prizes. The magazine also highlights Habu Shogi, a Japanese game resembling chess. Finally, the 64-bits section discusses potential releases of Earthworm Jim 3, Quest 64, titled Holy Magic Century L-Tale, and a possible SimCity 64. This page is an advertisement from new generation consoles and Excitement Direct, offering a wide range of N64 and Super NES games, consoles, accessories and imports via mail order and their shops. This page kicks off with a first look feature, boldly declaring the N64 is the most powerful console on the planet. A statement that might raise an eyebrow or two today, but back then you could believe it. The main event here is a gander at Titus's Lamborghini 64. The article muses whether this racer can fill the void for those who can't quite stretch to owning the real Italian supercar. A fair point. They mention a planned US release around September, and that while the initial cartridge version has 4 circuits, future 64DD compatibility promises more tracks. There's talk of multiple routes or shortcuts on courses, and 4 initial cars with unlockable secrets. Interestingly, they highlight Titus is putting a lot of effort into realistic physics and collision detection, specifically contrasting it with the seemingly invincible, cat-like landing cars in Cruisin' USA. The screenshots show some standard racing action, a pit stop, and a rather abstract-looking crash simulation with basic colored shapes, which is unique. The next page keeps the focus firmly on Titus's Lamborghini 64, building on the previous page's introduction. We get a look at some more screenshots, highlighting the track environment, and showing cars on the move. The article delves into the game modes, confirming 2-player is in, and even hinting at a possible 4-player mode down the line. They seem impressed by the European-style scenery, noting Titus being based in Paris might explain the Nornook landscapes. Realism is still the buzzword, with mention of visual effects like light flare, which apparently looked great in Wave Race 64, and features like pit stops and real-time weather aiming to differentiate it from arcade racers like Ridge Racer. There's a whole section dedicated to the Titus art, showing off concept sketches for the scenery, emphasizing the effort going into making the tracks look good, and confirming the idea of alternate routes and shortcuts. Plus, they show off the car design process with shots of cars being modeled, assuring us these aren't some kind of in-game creation tool, just proof they're putting some serious graft into the visuals. Looks promising, especially with that focus on realism. This page gives us a cracking first look at Duke Nukem 64, announcing that Doom, Turok, and all the other shooters better step aside because the baddest Mutha is heading to the N64. Apparently, Duke Nukem 3D on the PC was like a low-budget action movie, packed with questionable content and plenty of swearing sounds right up our alley. The plot is the usual aliens wanting to wipe us out fair, and Duke is the chap who steps up. The article highlights Duke's impressive moveset. He's not just walking forward like in old Doom, he can look up, look down, jump, swim and even fly if you get your hands on a jetpack. The levels are described as incredibly diverse, taking you from sewers to post-apocalyptic cityscapes, nightclubs, and cinemas. We see screenshots showing off some alien chaps getting blasted, a cool moon level, and indoor environments. The preview clearly rates Duke, calling him the toughest, coolest cat in gaming, and noting he brings more than just guns. He's got those killer one-liners too. It seems like this N64 port is shaping up nicely, with promises of extra levels and graphical tweaks. This page keeps the Duke Nukem 64 party going, giving us a peek at some concept art and confirming the N64 port isn't pulling any punches. We see sketches for a megaboss and a super trooper, who looks suspiciously like a pig copper. Good to know they put some thought into these chaps. More importantly, the screenshots show off the diverse levels again, from gritty cityscapes to underwater sections. But they also confirm that glorious Duke violence is fully intact. Yep, we're treated to shots of GIBS, blood-soaked floors, and yes, even that controversial scene with the tied-up women. The article gleefully points out that Nintendo is actually letting this stuff through, which is quite something. They even compare the gore to Turok's, suggesting Duke isn't holding back at all on the N64. Looks like it's not just mindless blasting either, as they mention puzzles and secrets are still in the mix. It's penciled in for a September release in the States, so hopefully, we'll be blasting aliens by Christmas. This page gives us a first look at Body Harvest on the N64, a game apparently inspired by Miyamoto himself, which is quite the claim. We hear it's undergoing some tweaks, adding more RPG elements to what already sounds like an engrossing title. The plot is a bit grim, loosely based on Invasion of the Body Snatchers, with aliens returning thousands of years after planting humans on Earth, ready for a rather gruesome harvest festival. Your job is to travel through time and across the world to rescue the few remaining humans. Gameplay sounds like a decent mix, blending third-person shooting and combat with driving and strategy. The standout feature mentioned is the sheer variety of vehicles you can commandeer, over 130 types, from fire engines and ice cream vans to tanks and biplanes. If you can spot it in the landscape, you can probably drive it. Chaya. The aliens are varied too, ranging from flying creatures to what looks like robotic crabs and giant insects in the screenshots. The magazine calls the graphics stupendous, and while they look functional, the ambition of the game world certainly seems impressive. If Miyamoto's touch is in there, hopefully, it'll play as good as they hope. This page gives us a first look at Kirby's Air Ride on the N64, a game that's been taking its sweet time getting here after popping up way back in 1995. Apparently it's been through more rewrites than a dodgy sitcom script. The magazine notes that the original version was a 4-player game where Kirby was just a pink ball rolling around a giant chessboard, which sounds whoa! The newer screenshots, however, show our favorite pink puffball looking a bit more polished, wearing a baseball cap, and actually exploring different environments, not just a giant checkered board. Screenshots show Kirby flying, riding on a track, exploring grassy areas with enemies and stars, and even a rather colorful bird creature makes an appearance. Nintendo are keeping tight-lipped about it, and it's not on the official 1997 schedules, but the article suggests it might just sneak out in Japan for Christmas. We're promised more details on the pink, planet-swallowing fluffy one when they surface, but for now, these screenshots will have to tide us over. Looks like typical adorable Kirby fare, so it's bound to be packed with Japanese cute stuff, even if its development has been a bit chaotic. This page gives us a pre-play look at Hexen 64, presented with a large title graphic and several screenshots showing the game's first-person fantasy combat, complete with spiked maces and spooky enemies. The headline cheekily asks if Hexen 64, looking rather like Doom 64 but perhaps better lit, might steal the thunder with its 4-player mode before Doom 64 even lands in the UK. The article notes the game's Doom-style gameplay and confirms a 4-player mode, pondering if it will be as much of an upgrade over previous versions as Doom 64 was, or if the battle mode will be as addictive as those in Mario Kart 64 or Star Fox 64. In a section titled Oh Hex, the reviewer expresses a personal lack of enjoyment with past Hexen titles, and suggests the N64 version doesn't appear to be a massive leap forward compared to the PC and PlayStation releases. Having played an early version, they note that the levels seem identical to earlier games, and finding anything genuinely new in terms of weapons, monsters, puzzles, or even graphics looks like it might be quite the challenge. Publisher is GT Interactive, and it's slated for the second quarter. This page continues the pre-play look at Hexen 64, dominated by a massive, rather menacing figure with glowing hands and fiery eyes. Surrounding it are several screenshots showing the familiar first-person perspective, complete with a chunky spiked mace, dungeon corridors, and a glimpse of a rather unpleasant-looking horned enemy with multiple glowing eyes. The main text jumps straight into the game's big selling point, the 4-player mode, under the bold heading, "No more jokes about 4-play." The reviewer ponders if this mode will be the game's saving grace, questioning whether it can rival the addictive multiplayer found in N64 classics like Mario Kart or Star Fox. They seem hopeful that the simple joy of whacking your mates with a digital mace, or blasting them into oblivion, will be enough to make it a hit, perhaps even more fun than a red shell or banana skin. Two smaller observations pop up. One quips about the mace being useful for getting back into your house when locked out, and another expresses a longing for more substantial firepower, specifically a double-barrel shotgun or a rocket launcher. Finally, a caption below the large monster image suggests the game is so intense it could set your controller on fire, wondering about the chaos the 4-player mode will unleash. The page confirms it's from Total 64, Volume 1, Issue 5, page 17. Hexen 64's playable characters, the mage, cleric, and fighter, are detailed. The mage starts with a staff, the cleric with a mace, and the fighter with metal gloves. Each class gains additional weapons, the mage's frost shards, the cleric's serpent staff, and the fighter's Timon's axe. The article discusses multiplayer, comparing it to Mario Kart 64 and Star Fox 64, and suggests intense deathmatches. Screenshots showcase the game's first-person view, weapons, and enemies. The article is from Total 64, Volume 1, Issue 5. This page features two import specialists, Madeira Games and Wild Imports, offering us /Japanese N64 and PlayStation consoles, games like Mario Kart and Star Fox 64, accessories, and conversion services. This page dives headfirst into the world of Mortal Kombat Trilogy. It's splashed with a massive title, artwork featuring Mylena, or Kitana, they're practically twins with masks on, and a Native American-inspired character, who looks suspiciously like Nightwolf. There are a couple of screenshots showing the infamous brutal combat the series is known for. The text hypes up Mortal Kombat Trilogy as the goriest beat-em-up hitting PAL systems. It discusses the franchise's history, acknowledging the massive hype it generated back in the day, perhaps a bit like the furore surrounding Street Fighter II. The article touches on the character roster and their unique moves, but the reviewer seems a bit lukewarm, frankly stating that Mortal Kombat was never actually a particularly good game, despite all the marketing and controversy surrounding the gore. They even throw in a slightly bizarre comment about Frosty's cereal adverts, because why not? It's all about getting ready for that big finish, apparently. This page continues the Mortal Kombat Trilogy showcase, diving deeper into the game and the associated cinematic disasters, or rather, movies. The big, menacing chap dominating the page is none other than Shao Kahn himself, looking suitably ready to conquer realms. The layout highlights special moves, special movies, suggesting they're covering both the in-game action and the Hollywood adaptations. There's a section dedicated to the original Mortal Kombat film, noted for showing the abysmal Street Fighter movie how it's done. It points out many of the special moves made it to the big screen, including Scorpion's famous spear attack. Then there's a preview of Mortal Kombat Annihilation, promising a bigger budget and more action, with images of Scorpion, Liu Kang and Sonya Blade from the films. Back on the game side, the text touches on the wealth of characters and moves in Trilogy, calling MK3 the most polished and best presented entry yet, though still finding the gameplay overly reliant on special moves compared to the superior counter-reaction systems in fighters like Tekken 2. Ultimately, Mortal Kombat Trilogy is summed up as cramming everything into one package for the dedicated fans. There are also amusing captions about the gore and the cost of looking like the Incredible Hulk. This page continues the Mortal Kombat Trilogy showcase, featuring more in-game screenshots and commentary. We see Kano celebrating a victory and a rather fiery Scorpion fatality. The main text touches upon the sheer number of characters, boasting over 25, and highlights the N64 version's main advantage: instant loading times thanks to the cartridge format, although it notes a slight loss of animation frames compared to disc-based versions. It still sees the game primarily as a comprehensive package for the series' dedicated fanbase. Adding a dose of reality, Nick's comment offers a less enthusiastic perspective, stating he was never a fan of the series' gameplay, finding it disjointed compared to rivals like Street Fighter II or Tekken. He views Trilogy as a simple cash-in on the N64 market, and bluntly advises saving your money for Dead or Alive instead. The page also includes humorous captions under the screenshots, questioning a character's hat choice and shadow shape, and making a tongue-in-cheek remark about the game's notorious gore. Most bizarrely, there's a mock character profile for Where Hippie Guttery, a fictional journalist with a transforming persona and a list of ridiculous special moves like noisome stench and lame kicks, adding a bit of self-aware silliness to the fighting game madness. This page continues the delve into Mortal Kombat Trilogy, kicking off with a charmingly brutal drawing of Baraka, looking as if he's just flossed with someone's intestines. Plenty more screenshots are scattered about, showing off the usual chaotic fisticuffs, and even a rather sticky fatality involving green goop. The text highlights the N64 version's trump card, instant character transformations, a marked improvement over the disc-based PlayStation and Saturn versions, which apparently took an age to load. It acknowledges the game benefits greatly from the N64's sparse fighting game lineup, practically having the market to itself for a bit, while acknowledging Nintendo's generally more relaxed stance on violence compared to the old SNES days. The review suggests the game isn't quite perfect, but offers a decent bout of fun for fans of the series, especially those keen on collecting every character ever conceived in the franchise. The verdict section gives it the old scoring rundown. Graphics get a respectable 80, sound scores a decent 84 for its moody tunes and crunchy effects, but playability only manages a 72, citing the usual MK flow issues. This nets it an overall score of 74. It seems the reviewer reckons if you're already into the bloody brawls of Mortal Kombat, this compilation is a safe bet, though perhaps not exactly a revolutionary leap forward. This page dives headfirst into the forbidden arts of Mortal Kombat Trilogy, giving you the lowdown on how to bend the rules a bit. Following on from the review, it seems they're helping you get the most out of that N64 release, bless its cotton socks. Spread across the page are various screenshots showing off the gruesome combat and even Goro's smug victory pose. The main event here is a collection of cheats and secrets. Want to walk a mile in Shao Kahn's boots? There's a code for that, but only on specific stages and just for the round. Fancy the original Human Smoke? They've got the button combo ready. Warrington Door. There's also a rather neat secret option menu you can unlock by jiggling the controller on the storyline screen. This opens up handy tweaks, like choosing your battleground, toggling throws, and perhaps most crucially, giving you infinite run bar, because let's be honest, nobody enjoys puffing like a steam train mid-fight. Beyond the standard fighting fare, you can even unlock classic arcade games, like Space Invaders, Pong, and Galaga, by meeting certain match conditions. It seems Mortal Kombat Trilogy is a fighter with hidden depths, or at least, hidden retro gaming distractions. Finally, there's a little key at the bottom explaining all those glorious button abbreviations for your moves list. A proper treasure trove of digital mischief this page is. This page is an absolute goldmine for Mortal Kombat Trilogy players, diving deep into the fighting mechanics after showing you how to unlock bits on the last page. It's packed with character portraits and, more importantly, the full move lists for a serious chunk of the roster. You've got everyone from Big Bad Shao Kahn and the claw-wielding Baraka, to the cyborg Cyrax and the telekinetic Ermac. Over on the other side there are legends like Johnny Cage, the main man Liu Kang, the Bionic Jax, and the fan favorites Jade and Kitana. For each character, they've laid out their special moves, like Cyrax's net, or Liu Kang's bicycle kick, complete with the directional and button inputs. Crucially, it also includes the all-important combos to rack up the damage, and, of course, the finishers. Whether you're after the gory fatalities, the bone-breaking brutalities, the slightly less violent animalities, the hilarious friendships, or the utterly daft babalities and stage fatalities, the commands are all here. This page essentially gives you the blueprint to master your favorite fighter and show off with some gruesome or ridiculous endo-frowned antics. A proper reference sheet. This page continues the deep dive into Mortal Kombat Trilogy's roster, giving you the goods on another 10 fighters. We've got the moves for classics like Kano, Scorpion, Raiden and Reptile, alongside fan favorites such as Mileena, Rain, Kabal, Nightwolf, Noob Saibot and Kung Lao. Just like the last page, it lays out their special moves, like Scorpion's Spear or Raiden's Lightning, followed by essential combo strings to chain attacks together. And of course, it wouldn't be Mortal Kombat without the finisher commands. Whether you want to pull off a gruesome fatality, unleash a devastating brutality, transform with an animality, lighten the mood with a friendship, or turn your opponent into a baby with a babality, the inputs are right here, a proper treasure trove for anyone looking to master the full lineup and impress, or horrify, their mates. This page continues the Mortal Kombat Trilogy character guide, giving you the lowdown on another batch of classic fighters and some relative newcomers. Featured here are fan favorites like Shang Tsung, Sindel, Sector, Sonya, and Shiva, alongside Cyborg Warrior Smoke, the slightly out-of-place Striker, the icy Sub-Zero, Cyber Smoke, and the boss character Motaro. Just like the previous page, it meticulously details each character's special moves, from Shang Tsung's Fireballs to Sub-Zero's Freeze, before listing their essential combo strings for racking up damage. And for those glorious, brutal, or utterly bizarre finishing moves, you get the full list. Fatality inputs, brutalities, animalities, friendships, babalities, and the specific stage finishing moves. It's everything you need to master this lot and make your mates weep, or giggle, depending on which finisher you pull off. This page is a full-page advert for a brand new magazine called Ultimate PC Revolution, aimed at die-hard PC gamers. Issue 1 is available for only £2.50 and includes a free playable demos CD. This page is an advert for the first issue of Ultimate PC Magazine, packed with 164 pages of PC news, previews and reviews. It launches on the 29th of August. Don't miss it. This page is running a cracking competition where you could win one of 5 copies of Turok, Dinosaur Hunter. They're asking you to name the gladiator who called Turok the best game they'd ever played, and the chap with the axe and a photo is your big clue. Get your answer in by post or email before the closing date of August 8, 1997, for a chance to nab that Dynablasting classic. Proper good giveaway that. This page introduces the review section, aptly titled The Truth 64. It helpfully breaks down the magazine's scoring system, explaining what each percentage band, from the elite 91,100% down to the absolute shockers in the 020% bracket, means for a game. Essentially, it's their guide to navigating the treacherous world of N64 game buying. Alongside this, they feature the picks of the bunch, showcasing the current top 5 favorite games from both a reader and the staff members. Ross He's Crashed Grant is the reader champion this month, with his top picks including classics like Mario Kart 64 and Turok, Dinosaur Hunter, though he clearly wasn't a fan of Shadows of the Empire, labeling it his poo game. The staff members, including Chris All the Moves Mark and Mark Streethawk Ashek Ashford, also weigh in with their personal top 5s, giving a good spread of what the team rates right now. This page is pure racing chaos, isn't it? We've got a full-blown illustration of the gang from Mario Kart 64 tearing up a track that looks suspiciously like Calamari Desert, complete with that ruddy train. Mario's front and center, looking determined, while Wario's pulling a classic scowl. Donkey Kong, Yoshi, Princess Peach, Luigi, and even poor Toad are all in the mix, dodging bananas and probably thinking about shells. It's the perfect splash page to kick off the review section, prominently displaying the Total 64 review title, just as the previous page promised. Considering Mario Kart 64 was one of the picks of the bunch last month, it's a fitting visual fanfare for diving into the latest N64 games. Looks like we're in for some serious critique. This page dives straight into the review for Mario Kart 64, asking the crucial question, is this a proper upgrade from the SNES Classic, or just a cynical cash-in trading on the original's stellar reputation? The text kicks off by rightfully declaring the inventor of the original game a genius. Hear, hear! It talks about the sheer fun and hours spent whizzing around the tracks. We've got a few glimpses of the action here too, including a scrap in a battle mode arena, some standard racing, and a shot from Calamari Desert showing Mario bravely, or perhaps foolishly, facing off against that rather large locomotive. Looks like they're ready to give this N64 update a thorough grilling. The next page jumps straight into the drivers, starting your engines and introducing the cast of characters. We've got the main man Mario, who's apparently a lovely bloke when he's not saving princesses. Princess Toadstool isn't using her mirror for makeup, instead reflecting sun into your evil heart. Cheeky, Bowser's described as a mean muther, hard to argue there, and always after the poor Mario guy. Yoshi, the little dinosaur friend, is off on holiday apparently, hence why he's not in that Jurassic Park movie. Coraja. Below the character intros, we see some screenshots showing a victory screen, split screen action, and a close-up of some karts. The text then reflects on the massive popularity of the original SNES game, which apparently sold over 2.5 million copies worldwide. Quite the feat. It talks about the excitement surrounding the N64 announcement, met with a squeaky voice, asking if it would come to the N64. There's a little section called Smart Kart, explaining the simple but brilliant recipe. Take basic racing, add characters, mix in weapons, shake well, and you get an addictive cocktail of fun. Finally, James gives his comment, admitting he was initially worried the visuals didn't look upgraded enough, but ultimately found the game just as worryingly addictive and totally brilliant as the original. Sounds like the N64 version holds up after all. The next page introduces Donkey Kong, Toad, Wario and Luigi. Gameplay features a single-player Grand Prix mode with increasing difficulty across 16 courses divided into 4 cups: Mushroom, Flower, Star, Special. Players earn points for top 4 finishes and can race the cups in reverse after achieving gold at 150cc. Dirty tactics like weapon use, e.g. DK's bananas, and environmental hazards, e.g. sliding penguins, are crucial. 8 characters with varying strengths, acceleration, top speed, handling, and 3 engine classes, 50cc, 100cc, 150cc, offer customization and a skill-appropriate challenge. This page kicks things off with a huge emphasis on the chaotic joy of split-screen action. And blimey, they're not wrong. The screenshots show off the frantic fun of playing with friends, from 2 all the way up to 4 players crammed onto one screen. The reviewer states unequivocally that the multiplayer is the best bit of Mario Kart 64, even if the frame rate dips a bit with a full house. But that's easily forgotten when you're tearing around the tracks or in the battle arenas, trying to stitch up your pals. It's pegged as one of the most addictive games in history, and frankly it's hard to argue. The write-up also touches on the updated power-ups. Hello to holding 3 red shells at once for maximum annoyance, and watch out for that new purple spiked shell that ruthlessly hunts down the leader. The tracks get a shout-out too, being longer and offering a much greater variety of environments than before, from beaches and ice worlds to Bowser's castle. The reviewer Justin chips in, confirming the UK version breathed new life into their gaming sessions, making it a superb multiplayer experience they can't get enough of. Sounds like a winner. This page continues the deep dive into Mario Kart 64, reinforcing that the real meat is the multi-monkeys. Yes, that's the multiplayer. The screenshots show off the chaotic fun, from racing across colorful tracks to the frantic battle mode, with 4 players duking it out. You see shots of the character select screen, confirming the familiar faces are back, and the map select showing off the course variety. The review hammers home that the 4-player battle mode is where the game truly shines, calling it an absolute riot. They love the multi-leveled arenas, which add a whole new dimension compared to the flat tracks of the original SNES game. While they do mention the multiplayer can suffer from slowdown, especially with a full house, it's deemed easily forgotten once you're caught up in the action. The verdict is pretty clear. Graphics are a great improvement at 89. The sound is a typical Nintendo soundtrack landing at 85, but playability is a staggering 96, apparently better than playing with a real monkey. Overall, Mario Kart 64 scores a mighty 95, proving it's a must-have for any N64 owner, especially if you've got mates to play with. This page features a review of the fighting game War Gods. It's hard to miss the massive green, muscular character dominating the page, looking like he's about to introduce someone to his fist. Up top we see the 64 review logo, and the game title War Gods repeated. There are also several smaller screenshots showing gameplay, with characters duking it out, displaying health bars and combo text. The text kicks off, talking about the enduring popularity of beat-em-ups, asking, "Beat 'em ups, you just love 'em, don't you?" It notes the surprising lack of fighting games on the N64, despite the console's power. The reviewer gives a nod to Mortal Kombat Trilogy as the current N64 fighting champ, praising its addictive quality. However, the world has moved on, and it's all about 3D fighters now. So the creators of Mortal Kombat Midway have decided to step into the 3rd dimension with War Gods. It seems they're just setting the stage for the review, highlighting the genre's status and the N64's relative drought before diving into this new contender. You also see a menacing quote, "Be still my child, or I'll rip your heart out and eat it." Hang on, that wasn't in the Bible. There's even a caption pointing out a character and saying, "Watch out, he's staring at you." And he looks sort of hungry. Seems like they're ready for some 3D fisticuffs. This page continues the review of War Gods, featuring a gigantic God's logo splashed across the center. We see more screenshots of the 3D fighting action, showcasing character models and special moves, including a shot of voodoo fighting, and another character performing a spinning attack. The review delves into the game's bizarre plot, starting with an alien crashing a ship carrying powerful ore onto Earth. Years later, humans stumble upon this ore and become super-powered warriors. Naturally, they decide to have a massive punch-up. The reviewer dryly notes this is slightly over the top, but at least it's original. They also touch on the character bios, calling them amusing and informative, questioning if they're genuinely insightful or just pure and simple. The core gameplay is described as taking Mortal Kombat's mechanics and dropping them into a 3D environment, including projectiles and fatalities. However, the main issue seems to be that it feels dated, like MK itself has become compared to the likes of Virtua Fighter. Nick's comment on the side takes a swipe at PlayStation fans and argues the N64 needs a proper beat MUP to rival Tekken, but sadly, War Gods isn't it. He reckons it's only for die-hard Mortal Kombat fans. Overall, it sounds like the game might be more style and story than substance for the general fighting game enthusiast. This page continues the War Gods review under the rather sensational heading, Fatal Attraction. We're treated to more vibrant screenshots showing off the 3D models and some frankly gruesome finishing moves, including characters being sliced open and one delightful chap ripping out a heart. Justin's comment weighs in, calling it the best beat-em-up on the N64 at the moment, but quickly follows up by saying it pales in comparison to games like Tekken 2 on PlayStation or Mace, The Dark Age. He seems to echo the sentiment that it's one for the Mortal Kombat faithful, but perhaps not worth the asking price for anyone else. The review doesn't shy away from the gore, gleefully detailing fatalities like the heart rip, and comparing the bloodletting favorably, or perhaps unfavorably depending on your taste, to MK. They mention the gore is off by default, anticipating the inevitable controversy, and humorously suggest these characters are definitely not vegetarians when performing their finishes. An interesting point is made about War Gods being a proper 3D fighter, using the N64's power for true third-dimension movement, unlike some other 3D games that just use clever camera work. This page concludes the review of War Gods, showing off more screenshots of the 3D action and characters like Valor and Maximus, plus some rather questionable backgrounds that apparently reminded the reviewer of a hippie's t-shirt. The review highlights the use of a dedicated 3D button, allowing fighters to weave in and out of the screen, a brave move into a fully 3D environment. While admitting the game initially lacks the polish of PlayStation fighters, it praises the graphics engine for its stunning backgrounds and effects, though the gameplay is seen as the main issue, with a combat engine reminiscent of Mortal Kombat. The verdict is in, graphics scored 84, sound 80, and playability 73, resulting in an overall score of 76. Final word is that while visually impressive, War Gods is ultimately a limited fighting game compared to titles like Tekken 2 or Soul Blade, but it's noted as showing promise as one of the first fighting games on the N64. There's also a humorous acknowledgement that senseless violence is indeed great fun, mate. This page delves into the rather unique world of Wonder Project J2, a game that tasks you with raising a young girl named Josette. The concept is likened to a virtual friend or pet, following on from its SNES predecessor, and is discussed alongside the then-current Tamagotchi craze. Screenshots show Josette and an older gentleman in various settings, from cozy interiors to lush outdoor environments, and even a mysterious island. The reviewer, Justin, gives his personal take, expressing initial excitement but quickly hitting a wall, due to the game being entirely in Japanese. His frustration with the language barrier is palpable, warning others that fluency is a prerequisite. The main review ponders the very idea of a game focused on raising a digital human, comparing it to the limited interaction of the original SNES title, and noting how the N64's power allows for a more realized experience. There's also a slightly surreal aside about how Tamagotchi fever has apparently turned the reviewer's colleagues into zombie-like addicts, highlighting the obsessive nature of virtual pets. It seems Wonder Project J2 offers a fascinating, albeit potentially frustrating for non-Japanese speakers, take on the genre. This page continues the deep dive into Wonder Project J2, the rather unique title where your job is to raise a digital girl called Josette. The review explains how she learns and develops her personality based on your interactions, using a cursor and menu system to answer her questions. It seems she's full of questions, much like a real child, bless her. Visually, the game apparently makes good use of the N64's power, offering crisp manga-style graphics and smooth animation, capturing Josette's wide range of facial expressions. However, despite her cuteness, the review notes she can also be prone to rabid fits of biblical proportions. Sounds like a typical toddler then. There are screenshots showing Josette looking happy, angry, exploring different locales, and even a slightly unsettling close-up of a cyborg head, hinting at the game's deeper themes. The verdict is in, with scores awarded across graphics, sound, playability, and an overall rating. The final score sits at a respectable 69%, suggesting it's a decent game, but perhaps not a world-beater. The review acknowledges the game's originality and innovative attempt at the genre, but feels it's ultimately hampered by its complexity and a somewhat slow pace. It sounds like a fascinating experiment, but maybe one that doesn't quite hit the mark for mainstream success. This page dives into a game that was clearly needed for the Nintendo 64 library at the time, Killer Instinct Gold. The feature highlights the massive title with a prominent image of a character and large, bold text, asking if it's true gold or just, well, not, Saturn. Following on from the previous page's discussion about consoles needing strong software, the review explains that N64 owners were crying out for a decent beat-em-up, especially after the disappointment of Mortal Kombat trilogy. Killer Instinct Gold, already a hit in America, is finally landing in the UK. The page is filled with screenshots, showing off the action, featuring characters like Tusk and Cinder, in various stages. Captions point out the cool graphics and good selection of move combos, suggesting things are looking up for fans of the genre. The text confirms that Killer Instinct Gold is essentially the arcade game Killer Instinct 2, brought home for the N64. Seems like Nintendo were hoping this would provide the beat-em-up fix gamers craved. This page delivers the full review of Killer Instinct Gold, following up on the previous tease and confirming that the N64 finally gets its much-needed beat-em-up. The magazine confirms that this is essentially the arcade hit Killer Instinct 2 brought home. The page is packed with screenshots showing the fighting action with characters like Glacius, Tusk, Cinder, Maya, Spinal, and Fulgore mixing it up. The review notes that while the gaming world is heading into 3D fighters, Rare has stuck to the traditional 2D perspective, and apparently, it works because the gameplay is solid. It's highlighted as a skill-based fighter rewarding precision and timing, not just random button mashing, though a training mode and a unique team mode are mentioned to help players get stuck in and learn those crucial combos. However, there's a brutal counterpoint in the Miles comment box, which completely pans the game. Miles blasts it as obsolete due to release delays and doesn't hold back, calling the graphics crap, the animation shoddy, and the gameplay non-existent, advising readers to steer clear entirely. Well, that's a bit of a difference of opinion, isn't it? Seems like Killer Instinct Gold might be a Marmite game. You'll either love it or hate it. This page delves deeper into the roster of Killer Instinct Gold, highlighting some of the game's colorful characters. We get profiles for 4 fighters. Jago, described as similar to Street Fighter's Ken and Ryu, making him an all-rounder for newcomers. Maya, a nimble character armed with knives but weak against ranged attacks. Sabrewolf, the beastly fighter with formidable strength and mid-range attacks. And Orchid, whose powerful kicks make her a tricky opponent complete with a fireball-style move. We're also treated to several action-packed screenshots, showing off the character designs and fighting arenas. Below the character analyses, there's a James comment, which offers a much more positive take than the previously seen Miles review. James confesses he wasn't a fan of the SNES original, but finds Gold has won him over, praising the diverse character selection, impressive moves, cool combos, superb sound, and excellent graphics, even if a little rough. The review continues by discussing the staggering number of moves available to each character, providing a nice diversity in fighting styles. While it notes there aren't as many characters as some other beat-em-ups, the 11 included should keep players happy. It also mentions that many game options are initially locked, requiring players to complete the game on harder difficulty levels to unlock them. It seems Killer Instinct Gold is shaping up to be quite the detailed fighter, with plenty to discover. This page continues our look at Killer Instinct Gold, introducing a few more faces from the roster. We meet Spinal, the skeletal chap raised from the dead, packing sword and shield for long-range attacks, although he's a bit weak without any muscle. Then there's Glacius, who, like others, is best keeping opponents at a distance to protect his icy form. Tusk rocks the barbarian look with a big sword, capable at range but best up close despite being a bit clumsy. Finally, Kim arrives, armed with a plethora of kicks, comfortable in any range, only let down by her weakness. The review mentions the difficulty options, adding longevity and unlocks, giving you something to strive for. Graphically, it's seen as smart but not flash, with characters looking a touch fuzzy, and the action can get so fast things become a blur. It sounds like this one demands practice and patience to master. The verdict is in. Graphics scored 66, deemed not bad but not pushing the N64's limits. Sound got a respectable 74 for good tunes and speech. Playability managed 73, noted as tough for the faint-hearted. This leaves the overall score at 72. Looks like a decent, albeit challenging, fighter. A review roundup examines how games age. Blast Corps, a surprisingly addictive puzzle action game, earns an 89, praised for its escalating difficulty and action-packed gameplay, reminiscent of Pilot Wings. Cruisin' USA receives a dismal 59, criticized for its poor graphics, sluggish gameplay, and being a significantly worse version of Outrun. Finally, Doom 64 earns a 92, delighting a longtime fan with its improved atmosphere, larger levels, and new weapons, deemed superior to Super Mario 64. This page continues the review roundup, kicking off with Doraemon, which snagged a score of 69. It seems the reviewer couldn't help but compare it to the mighty Mario 64, finding it a quirky platformer with a few decent ideas, though ultimately overshadowed by the Big N's masterpiece. Next up is FIFA 64, and oh dear, its score has taken a tumble. Originally rated 76, it's now been knocked down to a rather dismal 58. Blame the arrival of ISS Soccer 64, which apparently blew FIFA out of the water and forced a score revision to reflect its absolute superiority. Poor FIFA just couldn't compete with Konami's top kickabout. Venduri. Finally, there's Human Grand Prix, hitting the gas and landing a solid 80. Despite complaints about pop-up, questionable realism, and bizarrely angled corners, the reviewer seems to have found enough to enjoy, perhaps even mentioning a highlight called Shed Blood, which is a favorite. It sounds like a flawed, but ultimately entertaining racer. The next page continues the review roundup, showcasing a quartet of games. First up is International Superstar Soccer 64, which, surprise surprise after what we just read, is hailed as the best footy game ever, absolutely trouncing EA's dismal FIFA 64. It scores a massive 97, praised for its graphics and gameplay. Next is G-League Perfect Striker, clocking in at an impressive 93. Sounds like a bit of a laugh with some hilarious player animations, though the gameplay holds up too, especially in two-player mode. Down below, Killer Instinct Gold pops up. It seems the reviewer found it fast, but perhaps a bit button-bashy compared to the likes of Tekken, noting jerky animation and slowdown during big combos. It holds steady, with its original score of 69. Finally, King of Pro Baseball gets a look in. Initially scoring a lofty 91, it's now dropped to a rather average 82. While the cute graphics and two-player mode were highlights, the reviewer admits it's become a cupboard dweller, frustrating on your own, and hard to find a human opponent for these days. A shame really. This page jumps into a trio of reviews. First up, it's the big one, Mario Kart 64, still holding strong with its initial score of 93. The reviewer reckons it's just more Mario Kart, albeit with new tracks and sharper graphics. While acknowledging its multiplayer brilliance and addictive nature, they ponder if it's that much of an upgrade from the SNES version to justify the price, suggesting potential buyers think carefully. Next we've got Mortal Kombat Trilogy, scoring a somewhat lukewarm 78. The burning question here seems to be why. The reviewer feels it looks exactly like every other version, offering nothing new for N64 owners. It's only recommended for die-hard fans, with a suggestion to wait for a proper 3D fighter that actually uses the console's power. Ouch. Finally, Pilot Wings 64 takes flight. Initially soaring with a 95, its current score dips slightly to 91. It's still lauded as a classic with varied missions and craft that keep you hooked, even if it spends time gathering dust between plays. The score drop? Apparently, the chaps in the office preferred the explosive fun of Blast Corps, which is fair enough I suppose. Still, it's firmly placed in the must-buy category. This review revisits several classic games. Star Fox 64, receiving a 96, is praised for its improved graphics, expanded levels, and gameplay additions. However, the lack of a two-player option is a drawback. Star Wars: Shadows of the Empire, in contrast, is slammed with a score plummeting to 49, deemed a disappointment. St. Andrew's Old Course Golf is similarly panned, receiving a 42, with the reviewer finding major flaws. Finally, Super Mario 64, maintaining a 96, is lauded as a near-perfect 3D Mario experience, a testament to gaming excellence. This page dives back into the review roundup, Kicking off with a look at Turok, Dinosaur Hunter. Despite not being the reviewer's usual cup of tea, Turok gets a solid 93, scoring points for its superb graphics and atmospheric sound. The variety in how enemies meet their maker seems to be a particular highlight, apparently quite satisfying. It's positioned as a decent holdover until Doom 64 drops. Next up is Wayne Gretzky's 3D Hockey. It's considered a good hockey game on the surface, but the current score has dipped to 82 from a previous 90. The reviewer feels it might get a bit dull quickly compared to other sports titles, suggesting it lacks depth despite a good multiplayer mode. Seems like it's a fun blast but maybe doesn't have the staying power. Woo! Finally, we're hitting the water with Wave Race 64. This game earns massive praise, with the reviewer admitting it might inspire them to actually try water sports. Described as extremely playable and unusually good software, it scores a fantastic 96 from issue 1, or 92 in the UK apparently. The only thing missing is apparently a lifeguard Pamela Anderson lookalike, which is a rather specific request, isn't it? If you want fun on your N64, they suggest taking to the virtual waves. The page is packed with vibrant screenshots showing off the action in all three games. This page is all about N64 extras, specifically looking at a couple of bits from Blaze. First up is the Blaze SFX64 version 2.0, which sounds like a fancy name for a universal adapter. Apparently, the original only worked with US or Japanese machines, but this new version promises to let you play foreign games on your UK console and vice versa. The review notes they only found two games they couldn't get working: Wave Race 64 and Star Fox 64, Jap. Bit of a shame about Wave Race after the glowing review on the last page, isn't it? On the plus side, ISS Soccer 64, UK, worked a treat on foreign machines. Compared to the competition, this adapter is half the price at £14.99 and does the same job, so it gets a thumbs up. Below that, we're looking at the Blaze 256K memory card. These come in different colors, including a neat clear version. They do exactly what any other memory card does: save your game progress. At £9.99, the review reckons the only real choice is whether you prefer the price or the color, suggesting Blaze offers a good option here too. The next page kicks off with a look at the Datal Memory Card Plus. Apparently this is Datal's version of the standard memory card, promising a LED readout to show you which page you're on, a handy little extra, though perhaps not totally essential. It's priced at £19.99 and Datal themselves are supplying it. They mention there's a coloured version coming, but this one's plain white. Below that we dive into something completely different: the Dino Attack shooting game. This is a handheld game, not N64 related at all, but featured here as a potential boredom killer while you're waiting for your turn on the console. It sounds like a dinosaur-themed take on Space Invaders, portable enough for your pocket, and a darn sight cheaper than a Game Boy. It's available now from Fire International for a reasonable £7.99. Finally, at the bottom we've got the mouse mats and wrist rests. Yes, peripherals for your PC featuring Nintendo characters. The article muses that these aren't exactly vital gear, especially the mouse mats. You can't wipe your feet on them, for one. The wrist rests might be slightly more useful, but they're still hardly necessary kit, even for the hardened N64 fans chained to their desks. They're available now from the games, priced between £7.99 and £9.99, and feature various Mario characters like Mario, Bowser, Bob-Ombs and Racers, from Mario Kart 64 judging by the pictures. Total 64 Volume 1. Issue 5. The next page continues with a look at peripherals, but switches gears completely from the N64 itself. First up is the Tamagotchi. Yes, the virtual pet craze has hit Total 64, described here as something you'd only miss if you'd been on holiday to another planet or spent too much time on your N64. Is that even possible? For just under a tenner you become the proud owner of a digital creature demanding your every waking hour with features like feeding, playing, and cleaning up its mess. The article notes your pet's adult form depends on its upbringing, potentially resulting in something like an Elvis lookalike, or, less appealingly, a sperm of the devil, apparently inspired by one that met a rather unfortunate end. Below that there's a competition titled Total 64 Lucky Dip. The magazine is giving away a load of accessories and peripherals previously featured on these pages, feeling generous and deciding to spread the wealth. To be in with a chance to win these goodies, think memory packs, leads and controllers. All you need to do is answer a simple question about where you'd find a lucky dip. You can send your entry via postcard, sealed envelope, or even email, but make sure it arrives before August 8, 1997. This page is an advert for Rapide Publishing's pocketbook of N64 Hints and Tips, Volume 1. Get secrets, strategies, and codes for major games like Mario 64 and Turok for £10.99. This page is the letters section, the firing line, where readers fire off their questions to the magazine team. It seems like they had a proper postbag this month, encouraging readers to keep them coming for a chance to win a bundle of Blaze goodies from their sponsor, Fire International. Readers are asking about all sorts, from which games to buy after completing Mario 64, like Mario Kart 64 or Turok Dinosaur Hunter, to future releases like potential Star Wars games on the N64, especially after someone didn't rate Shadows of the Empire that highly tough crowd. There are also questions about hardware, like the elusive grey and black Japanese controller, and the mysterious 64DD add-on, which is apparently still shrouded in rumour for the UK. They even wonder about potential ports of games, like Resident Evil or Transport Tycoon. The team, The Truth, does their best to answer, suggesting E3 might hold clues for some questions, and humorously advising against modding a controller. You can see images of a Blaze memory card, a controller cable, a jet ski racer, and even Boba Fett making an appearance. This is the second part of the firing line, featuring reader feedback on the magazine. Shahid Ali's universal adapter is causing Mario Kart 64 screen issues, but a new Blaze adapter is promised. Sharon Marinin enjoys the magazine, but finds some N64 games too easy, hoping future titles offer more challenge. Craig Singer wants fewer cheat codes and reviews for games not released in the UK. Peter Rowe complains about the N64's rapid price drop, feeling ripped off after purchasing at launch, but The Truth defends price drops as beneficial in the long run. This page is the next installment of the letters section, the firing line, showing off some readers and their thoughts. We see a winner holding their new 64 console, Bowser tearing it up in Mario Kart 64, another reader chilling with his N64 and controller, and a rather spiffy-looking character drawing. First up, Melanie Snell is chuffed to bits, winning an N64, and loving Super Mario 64, the only game she has so far, and she's well excited for Zelda 64. Matt Baker, a former Saturn chap, is now enlightened and rocking an N64. He asks if American goodies work on a UK machine. The truth is that accessories are fine, but games are region-locked except for Wave Race 64, and maybe Star Fox 64, and they might do a Mario Kart 64 feature. Ben Chandler, clearly a bit of a skinflint looking for a deal, asks about Turok vs Doom 64, the mythical Jolt Pack, and memory card options. The magazine crew seem to prefer Turok, note the Jolt Pack is likely a Japan-only deal, and point out Blaze memory cards are a cheaper alternative to the official grey one. Finally, Panagiotis Paganidis from Greece found the magazine and thinks it's the best, preferring N64 graphics over PlayStation. He plans to get an N64, and wants features on Ganbar Gomon 5 and Mother 3, which the team will look into, perhaps while on a Greek holiday. The Picks Win Prizes page of the firing line features a massive Mario image and Daniel Hawkins questions about N64 features, Zelda 64 DD, point-and-click adventures, and Mortal Kombat 3D. The team clarifies that the Saturn's PC-like potential isn't important, Zelda 64 DD needs the original cartridge, and an N64 mouse isn't planned. Mortal Kombat 3D is a straightforward 3D port. A reader art competition, inspired by Daniel, is launched, with a year's subscription for the winner. The page showcases reader artwork, including Yoshi, Total 64 Team, Mario, and dinosaur art, along with the subscription winner, Ross Grant. Readers' letters in the firing line discuss UK N64 delays, prompting advice on importing from Japan. Concerns about game speed differences using converters, and the 64DD are addressed. Say, Platt's detailed questions on 64DD, cartridge sizes, and memory requirements for games are answered. Finally, Neil Pugh discusses Shadow of the Empire scoring, and the appeal of imports and future hardware releases. This page continues with the firing line letters, where readers air their views and ask questions. One punter recounts buying an N64, and advises others not to sell theirs, mentioning upcoming corkers like Blast Core and Duke Nukem 64. They also ask about cheats for Super Mario 64 after nabbing all 120 stars, to which the mag replies there are some hidden extras, and hints at the cannon on the roof and racing the penguin again. Another letter praises the mag over the official Nintendo one and questions why James Gale doesn't like the Mario series, also mentioning playing Pilot Wings and Wave Race. The response reveals James has actually caved and bought Mario 64 since then. The page also features Making Waves, a section dedicated to Wave Race 64 scores. It highlights some new hotshots, Ben Robbins and Shahin Mustafa, and challenges readers to beat the featured best times and trick scores. There's a list of top times and scores for various courses like Dolphin Park, Sunny Beach, and Port Blue, showing off the skills of players like Justin Calvert and Ian Thorley. They're asking for photos to prove your scores aren't just made-up numbers. Visually, there's a big old picture of Mario standing proud and a rather strange photo of someone bowing down before him, along with screenshots from Wave Race 64 and pictures of some of the ace players. This page gives us part 2 of Turok, The Empty Souls. It's a comic strip diving into the narrative side of the Turok universe, rather than just blasting dinosaurs. We see characters experiencing something rather trippy, with one panel describing it as falling in between everything and nothing, and sounding like something Timothy Leary would have enjoyed. The lower panels feature one character searching a bag, only to declare rather anticlimactically that it's empty. There's a bit of banter and reaction, including one bloke having a good old laugh about it. Looks like things are getting a bit existential in the Lost Land. This page continues the Turok comic strip. The characters are still clearly having a rather confusing time, with one bloke taking a bit of a tumble with a dramatic thwunk sound effect. His mates are looking on, musing about whether this psychedelic trip is even real. Turns out the bag they were searching is indeed empty, as anticlimactic as that sounds, prompting a bit of a chuckle from one of the crew. Amidst the chaos, there's a moment of recognition, or perhaps confusion, between characters named Josh and someone called Dad. However, things get decidedly less existential and more monstrous. The scene shifts dramatically, showing someone silhouetted against a bright sky, remarking that the experience turned out to be a trip. Then, we see close-ups of a rather unpleasant-looking, clawed foot pushing through foliage, accompanied by a growling sound. One character reacts with wide-eyed surprise, declaring they've ended up in Steven Spielberg's alley. A clear nod to the cinematic inspiration. Looks like the trippy fall has landed them right in the middle of a monster movie. This page continues the comic strip from the previous page, and things have gone from bad trip to full-blown prehistoric nightmare. The lads are still reeling, with one pointing out a massive dinosaur looming over them, noting his dad never sounded quite so raw-like. There's a moment of confusion, as someone asks, she, and another confirms they've landed somewhere utterly bizarre, a hole through space and across time. Turns out, according to the narration panels woven into this chaos, the planet Earth was once caught in a strange tidal wave in space, which created a spatial and temporal rift. This wave dragged things out with its wake, specifically, thousands of the world's inhabitants of that time, the dinosaurs. The top part of the page expands on this, showing huge monstrous creatures in this strange nexus, described as an intergalactic, multi-temporal sewer drain of the universe, known to us as the Lost Land. Apparently, these creatures survived and eventually thrived here. We also get snippets about humanity flourishing elsewhere, and discovering strange energy, hinting at deeper lore. Looks like our heroes are stuck in a place literally built from a cosmic accident that hoovered up dinosaurs and other nasties. Crikey. This page continues the Turok comic strip, delving deep into the lore of the Defender of the Earth. The top panel shows generations of the Fireseed family line, revealing their sacred duty as the Turok, the Sons of Stone who protect Earth from incursions from the Lost Land and the encroaching dinosaurs seeking to reclaim their kind. This honor falls to the eldest male, but in a frankly awkward turn of events it seems our hero Carl's father shirked his responsibilities years ago. The duty was taken up by someone named Josh, who apparently carried the light burden, possibly the magic satchel, and is now, bizarrely, inside Carl. Crikey! The bottom panel flashes back even further, explaining that an ancestor named Saquin inadvertently created the rift connecting Earth and the Lost Land. While trying to harness the time fire for his people, he was sucked into that strange intergalactic sewer drain filled with dinosaurs. Years later, Saquin found his way home, but his return opened the door for evolved dinosaurs, the Dinosaurs, to invade Earth. Saquin renamed his family Fireseed to reflect the evil he had sown. So, the current Turok's duty directly stems from an ancestor's cosmic blunder. This page continues the dramatic Turok comic strip saga. We find Carl in what appears to be a pizza joint, desperately trying to retrieve something, or rather someone, Josh, from a seemingly empty bag, much to the amusement of his pal Rocky. Carl explains the bag is actually a link between dimensions. Obviously, After much struggle and some colorful metaphors from Rocky about psychedelic trips and Bullwinkle, Carl manages to pull out a glowing artifact. The bottom part of the page flashes back to the weary ancestor Saquin, coughing his guts up and revealing that the artifact Carl found was always meant for Josh, further weaving the tangled tale of the Fireseed lineage and their cosmic blunders that created the Lost Land mess. It seems everyone in this family has a rather inconvenient destiny. The next page continues the Turok comic strip saga. Up top, things get rather dramatic as Carl finally manages to yank Josh out of that dimensional bag, only for them to immediately be chased by, well, something nasty and unseen. It's a frantic escape, and unfortunately, Josh gets himself properly stuck on a fence mid-run. Down below, we jump back to the flashback where Saquin explains the glowy artifact Carl found was always meant for Josh. Then it's back to the present, where the team recap the rather grim situation. A dead uncle, a magic bag, and now they're apparently tasked with fighting dinosaurs because of the Fireseed family's rather inconvenient destiny. They also touch on the tribe's history, and how something called time fire kept them off the radar for ages. Sounds like a recipe for a quiet life, doesn't it? The next page continues the Turok comic strip saga. It jumps right back into the frantic escape from that hulking, shadowy beast. Joshua's still struggling, trying to get that blasted dimensional bag to work while being chased down. Meanwhile, in what appears to be a separate scene or perhaps a flashback, we see a couple of lads in a car chatting about Joshua getting into trouble, specifically about making passes at someone's girlfriend. They mention needing to be careful about the company he keeps. The chase intensifies, with Joshua desperately trying to use the bag, but the creature gets hold of him. In a final shocker, Joshua looks up in horror as the creature attacks, and the car from the earlier scene suddenly appears on the scene, headlights blazing onto the chaos. Looks like things are about to get even more complicated for young Mr. Fireseed. The next page kicks off a dedicated player's guide for the legendary Mario Kart 64. You're greeted by the game's iconic logo in big red letters, sitting proudly above Mario himself looking rather chuffed in his kart, clutching a lightning bolt power-up no less. Wario's also lurking in the background, looking as grumpy as ever in his ride. The page serves as an intro, promising to get you race ready. It states that if you've read the review and bought the game, it's now time to dive into the guide for the total 64 Mario Kart lowdown. Expect top tips, all the shortcuts, and generally everything you need to shave those crucial seconds off your lap times and leave your mates in the dust. It even mentions the tip zone 64 up top, so you know exactly where to find all the good stuff. Let's get stuck in. This page dives straight into the nitty-gritty of Mario Kart 64 with the general tip section of the guide. You've got the classic logo up top, along with some lovely character art featuring Mario, Yoshi and Bowser looking ready to rumble. There are also several screenshots showing off various gameplay moments, like that train in Kalimari Desert. Don't get hit, yeah? And some chaotic racing action. The tips cover essential techniques you'll need to master. There's the boost start, explaining the crucial timing on the accelerator to get off the line quickly. Apparently it varies by character, so get experimenting. Then you've got overtaking, which mentions the rather fancy slipstream technique, nicked straight out of Formula 1, letting you slingshot past opponents. There's also the ever-important boost trick, detailing how to powerslide correctly by steering in the opposite direction to get those vital speed boosts. Keep an eye on that smoke, turning from white to yellow, and then red. Don't worry if you smack into a banana, as there's a tip on how to recover by jamming on the brakes to avoid a massive skid. Finally, it touches on unlocking mirrored tracks. Bag yourself all the gold trophies and you'll get to race everything backwards. Lovely. The next page delves straight into the Mushroom Cup tracks in Mario Kart 64, picking up right where the general tips left off. It covers the first 4 courses you'll tackle. The next first up is Luigi Raceway, described as the simplest and easiest track. The advice here is to use a fast kart like Bowser's, stick to the slipstream on straights, and hug the inside lines on bends. They also point out a cheeky extra power-up you can snag from the hot air balloon by jumping with the right shoulder button. Then there's Moo Moo Farm, a fairly straightforward oval. The key here is to stay dead center to maintain speed, and for the love of all that is holy, avoid those moles or their holes. Hitting one is apparently a one-way ticket to Explodey Town. Kalimari Desert is next, a long track where sticking to the road is paramount unless you fancy slowing right down. The big nasty here is the train that crosses the track. Hit that and your race is basically over. Don't even think about trying a shortcut via the track itself. It's not worth the inevitable disaster. Finally, Koopa Troopa Beach adds a bit more spice with a couple of shortcuts. There's a cave you can boost through, if you've got the mushroom or hit the ramp just right. And another sneaky one across a tidal sandbank near a rock arch, but watch out for the nippy crabs lurking there. This page takes us into the Flower Cup of Mario Kart 64, kicking off with Toad's Turnpike. It's a favorite thanks to the chaos of dodging buses and juggernauts, where slowing down for traffic jams is wiser than becoming roadkill. Stick left for items, apparently. Ha! Next is Frappy Snowland, the first snow track, featuring pesky snowmen that pop up everywhere. You can play it safe by navigating around the big Mario snowman, but it's slower. Or, embrace the chaos and drive straight, only swerving for the ones directly in your path. Good luck with that. Choco Mountain is dubbed an absolute nightmare, living up to its name with falling rocks you desperately need to avoid. Staying left is key to dodging the rocks, and watch the edges, especially after the boulder section. They are treacherous. Use them to your advantage by nudging opponents off. Finally, Mario Raceway harks back to the SNES style. You can cut corners across the grass, but beware the piranha plants lurking there, as they'll send you sky high. The real tip here is mastering the power slide on corners for that essential speed boost upon exit. Mario himself is even here giving us a thumbs up. The Total 64 team declares the Star Cup in Mario Kart 64 their favorite, highlighting Wario Stadium. Tips include power sliding strategically in Wario Stadium, avoiding thwomp blocks in Bowser Castle, and staying clear of icy water in Sherbet Land. Royal Raceway, featuring shortcuts and a tricky final corner, is also discussed. The article provides specific advice for each track, including utilizing power-ups and avoiding hazards. This page continues the Mario Kart 64 track analysis, diving into the Special Cup. It kicks off with Dikatse Jungle Parkway, pointing out that it's challenging but perhaps not as tough as the SNES original. The monkeys are a menace, apparently throwing remarkably accurate coconuts. The guide suggests a couple of cheeky shortcuts, including one near the cave and another near the rope bridge. Next up is the notoriously confusing Yoshi Valley, where the lead isn't clear until the very end. The power-ups you get can give you a hint, though stars mean you're doing terribly. The key advice here is to always turn left when given a choice, as it's the quickest route, and definitely steer clear of that giant egg which seems to have a mind of its own. Rainbow Road is described as the longest and most colorful track, thankfully light on obstacles that actually hurt you, save for the pesky bob-ombs that try to munch on you. Watch out for that big drop right at the start. Staying central is key unless you fancy a little float into the void. Finally, Banshee Boardwalk gets a mention, deemed dangerous especially at 150cc. A slight mistake can send you for a dip, and there's a tricky shortcut involving a jump inside the castle. Just don't get smacked by too many bats in there, or you'll be spinning out of control. Plenty of screenshots, and cool character art of DK and Yoshi too. This page is a fantastic competition page celebrating the arrival of the absolute essential multiplayer game Mario Kart 64 in the UK, with a cracking headline asking, "Wherefore Kart thou Mario?" Total 64 are giving readers a chance to win a copy of the game itself and some of those swanky new colored controllers. To be in with a shout, you just need to answer 3 karting questions. They're asking about which tracks you can visit from the Princess Castle, which one isn't a real Mario Kart circuit, easy for a seasoned racer, and which character didn't make the final cut in the game. Answer correctly, get it in by post or email before the cutoff, and you could be tearing up the track with the best of them. A solid prize for anyone who hasn't managed to bag the game yet, or just fancies a snazzy controller. This page features a comic strip titled, "Here's Toby," drawn by Charlie Brooker. It kicks off with Toby happily gaming, only for his mum to pull the plug and insist he takes his little brother to the park because it's a delightful day outside. Toby, as any self-respecting indoor enthusiast would, laments how much he hates the outside world. Despite his protestations, they head to the park. However, Toby's mood quickly changes when he spots a woman sunbathing. Suddenly, the park isn't so bad after all. His brother wants to play football, but Toby is utterly fixated, declaring he's not moving an inch until she turns over. Cut to an hour later, his brother is bored, but Toby is still glued to the spot. 4 hours later, it's raining, but Toby's still waiting, telling his brother to be quiet. That night, still raining, Toby is just staring, and his brother is pleading to go home. Finally, the next day, Toby gives up and wants to leave, only for his brother to mockingly call him a quitter. A classic tale of a gamer's reluctant interaction with the great outdoors, entirely derailed by cackling distractions. This page continues Toby's park adventure. Convinced of his telekinetic powers, after the sunbather actually turns over, his moment of triumph is rudely interrupted by a crashing aircraft. Naturally, Toby takes credit for this too, before pivoting straight into a hard sell, demanding everyone phone or visit the infamous computer exchange, signing off in his usual charming manner. Below the comic, there's a massive computer exchange advert featuring game releases, job vacancies, branch details, and a credit card hotline. This page dives headfirst into the world of football, with a big feature on International Superstar Soccer 64. There's a massive title graphic and a rather enthusiastic-looking player showing off some skills. The text kicks off by stating how the game has captivated the office, much like sensible soccer before it. To mark the arrival of this landmark title, the Rapid teams took to the pitch for a mini-tournament. The page introduces the players and their teams, giving us a glimpse into their footballing philosophies and questionable team selections, ranging from Arsenal loyalists, well, mostly, to those who preferred 6-year-olds or long-haired legends. The kickoff section details one of the matches from this epic showdown between Justin and Nick, describing a tense game that exploded into life, culminating in late drama and injury-time heroics. You also get a couple of small screenshots showing the gameplay in action, just to whet your appetite for this office-shattering footy sim. The next page continues the International Superstar Soccer 64 feature, showing off more screenshots of the action and noting that the PAL version apparently runs faster for some frantic gameplay. We dive deeper into the office tournament, getting the lowdown on the mid-season blues, where the league table started to take shape, splitting into the contenders and the strugglers. Chris was looking dominant early on, but others like John, Miles and Justin were right behind him, while poor Mark was having a shocker at the bottom, seemingly leaking goals everywhere. We also hear about Simon's impressive comeback run. The page also spills the beans on a match between the eventual cup and league winners, hinting at a gripping final confrontation. Adding a touch of Total 64's unique flavor, there are special awards handed out. Chris Marquet gets the David Beckham Award for being most likely to pull a Spice Girl, while Mark Smith earns the George Graham Award, presumably for some dubious off-pitch activities trying to bribe his way up the table with brown paper bags full of tenors. Excellent stuff, truly capturing the spirit of competition and questionable ethics. This page brings the nail-biting Office International Superstar Soccer 64 tournament to a close, detailing the dramatic final moments of the season. We hear about the fight for survival at the bottom, with Mark and Simon battling relegation, while Miles needed a result against Nick and Chris to stay up. Poor Mark's team of Simpsons stars apparently played as badly as they sound, confirming his drop with a heavy defeat. We also see the final tally for the top goal scorers, with Chris Marquet leading the charge with a frankly ridiculous number of goals, while other players like Mark, Miles and Simon also chipped in significantly. The page wraps up the special awards, with John Evans picking up the Kevin Keegan Award for sorest loser after resorting to violence against Miles, and Mark Smith earning the Ian Wright Award for violence on the pitch for his aggressive, foul-happy tactics throughout the season, proving that sometimes lack of skill manifests as sheer brutality. Lots of screenshots show the game action, including some rather suspect tackles. There's even a photo of some 11-year-olds that's captioned in a slightly questionable way. This page reveals the thrilling conclusion to the Office International Superstar Soccer 64 Premier Direct Premiership. And who better to dish out the tips after winning the darn thing than Chris Marquet himself? The final league table shows Chris comfortably taking the title, with Miles second and John in third. Poor Mark and Simon are rooted to the bottom. Looks like Mark's Simpsons squad wasn't exactly a masterstroke. The main feature sees Chris, the ISS 64 champion, sharing his tactical genius. He's all about attack, advocating a bold 433 formation, and hammering home the importance of pacey wide players and a lethal centre forward. Forget defensive setups, Chris says, score more goals than the other bloke. Sound advice, if a bit obvious. There are screenshots showing the game in action, highlighting the goalmouth scrambles. It all wraps up with a rather cheeky note at the bottom, mentioning Chris was talking to the editor just before facing a disciplinary hearing for bringing the league into disrepute. Office footy drama at its finest. This page is diving deep into the cheat zone, featuring a rather jolly-looking Mario ready to help you break the rules. The focus here is on Cruisin' USA, a game that apparently needs much-needed breath of new life according to the chaps at Total 64. They've laid out several cheats to jazz things up a bit. You can unlock extra courses you wouldn't normally see in the single-player mode, letting you revisit tracks from the Grand Cruise the USA journey. There's also the lowdown on accessing some rather fetching hidden cars. Yes, you can finally hoon around in a Jeep, police car, or even a school bus. The police car and school bus cheats even let you activate flashing lights and a siren, perfect for annoying the competition. Perhaps the most intriguing cheat is the Nitro Boost, which involves messing about on the hot time screen until a spooky disembodied head rolls across the screen saying, "I love this job." Bit weird, but hey, free boost. You'll need to mash brake and gas to activate it after each checkpoint. The page is littered with screenshots showing the game in action, from city streets to the Golden Gate Bridge, and even the car selection screen showing off those extra rides. Seems like these cheats are the secret sauce to making Cruisin' USA a bit more exciting. This page stays firmly in the cheat zone, this time tackling the rather demonic Doom 64. Apparently the Total 64 crew is ready to help you out if the monsters are proving a bit much, and who can blame them? Doom 64 is no walk in the park. They've laid out a comprehensive list of level passwords for every single stage across 4 different skill levels. Be gentle, bring it on, I own Doom, and watch me die. So no matter how masochistic you're feeling, they've got you covered if you need to jump around levels. But the real showstopper is the super password. Punching this bad boy in throws you straight onto the very last level, armed to the teeth with full health, max armor, all weapons, and a souped UP laser gun that's supposedly 3 times more powerful than the BFG 9000. It even helps you mess with the final level mechanics. Sounds like the perfect way to skip to the carnage, or give that final boss a proper pasting. The page is littered with gory screenshots showing the game's enemies in action, reminding you exactly what you'll be facing. This page serves up a healthy dose of cheats and tips for a couple of classic N64 titles. First up is G-League Perfect Striker, apparently the best footy game ever, which has gone a bit silly with some cheat codes. You can unlock 2 new teams by either grinding through the league mode, sounds like a chore, or simply punching in a specific code at the title screen. There's also a code for big head players, turning the serious business of football into a bit of a laugh, NBA Jam style. Screenshots show off the standard game view and, of course, the hilarious big-headed players in action. Below that, we dive into Killer Instinct Gold. This section promises access to bonus options without getting absolutely thrashed. There are codes to access all level options, see the ending credits, though not character-specific ones mind you, unlock and play as the massive boss character Gargos, and even fight on the Sky stage. The page features images of several characters, including Orchid and a rather imposing Gargos, alongside screenshots showing off the brutal fighting action on different stages, including that gravity-defying Sky stage. Looks like plenty of ways to mess about with this fighting classic without mastering those tricky combos. This page highlights bizarre secrets in Super Mario 64, showcasing screenshots of the game's colorful environments and Mario. Techniques include a hat trick involving stacked hats, a second controller camera trick during the Bowser fight, and a jump kick trick to carry a rabbit. Finally, punching butterflies in specific levels can transform them into bombs or 1 UPS, adding to the game's quirky gameplay. This page delves into some nifty tricks and cheats for Mario Kart 64. It kicks off by detailing how to race against course ghosts, which are actually the development team's best times, offering a real challenge on certain tracks like Luigi Raceway and Royal Raceway. Next up is the rather cunning boost trick, explaining how to gain a speed boost when sliding around corners by wiggling the joystick. Get it right, and your smoke goes from white to yellow, then red for that extra kick. Warrington Nook. There's also a tip on achieving a speed burst right at the start of a race by timing your acceleration with the lights turning blue. Proper old-school boost mechanic, that. Ricare. Finally, it reveals how to unlock mirrored tracks by achieving first place in every cup on 150cc, changing the title screen, and offering a fresh, albeit reversed, challenging Grand Prix mode. All rather useful for spicing up your karting career. The page is plastered with screenshots of the game in action and a rather cheerful-looking Mario ready to race. This page is all about unlocking the secrets in NBA Hangtime on the N64. It's packed with ways to mess about with the game, showing you how to get player clones so you can have, say, 2 Dennis Rodmans on the court at once. Imagine the chaos. Then there's a whole load of hidden players you can access by punching in specific names and pins. Apparently, some are rather odd characters. It lists tons of them, but honestly, who needs that many secret players? Warrant. It also details how to access secret play modes, using number codes on the tonight's matchup screen, letting you mess with things like player size, music, and even turn off pushing. There are further secret codes too, like making everyone's heads massive or turning on the shot percentage display. Rounding things off, you can find out how to get a random team select, and even change Rodman's infamous hair color, which is arguably the most important cheat of the lot. It's pretty comprehensive stuff if you want to break the game wide open. This page is loaded with secrets for two cracking N64 titles, Pilotwings 64 and Shadows of the Empire. First up, Pilotwings 64 gets the nod for having an excellent cheat section, and looking at these tips, it's hard to disagree. Finding the elusive Birdman stars sounds like a proper treasure hunt across the different islands. Apparently, the jetpack is your best friend for this. Plus, if you're after a perfect 100 on Jumble Hopper, there's a sneaky trick involving the Nintendo building that practically guarantees it. Looks like plenty of high-flying fun and target practice to be had, judging by the screenshots. Then we switch gears to Shadows of the Empire, which the magazine cheekily calls a pesky challenge points. Awful Star Wars cash in, harsh. But hey, at least collecting those points pays off with some serious cheats. Rack them up on easy for a Lebo scanner. On medium, things get much more exciting. You can snag 30 seconds of invincibility with all weapons, which is just pure bliss. Even better, on the Skyhook battle stage, you can hold the camera button to swap between your trusty Outrider and actual X-Wings or TIE fighters. And on the Jedi setting, you apparently get Wampas helping you out on Echo Base. Now that's a cheat section worth grinding for. The screenshots show off some snowy Hoth action and cockpit views, making those cheats sound even more tempting. This page is a tips zone section dedicated to Turok, Dinosaur Hunter for the Nintendo 64. It features a collection of cheat codes for the game, including Warrington pen and ink mode, black and white wireframes, disco mode, strobe lights and dancing enemies, infinite lives, a gallery mode to view, scale, and rotate all 3D enemies, Caviar Aries, a show credits option, strobe lights and Norsa has mode, Caviar Aries, Caviar Aries, Caviar Aries, all weapons, unlimited ammo. The page also mentions that after entering one of the cheats, a cheat menu becomes available, allowing players to toggle cheats on or off. They made a joke about how they haven't got a cheat to stop those bleeding Trexes from scaring the pants off you. The page is adorned with screenshots from the game, showcasing the dinosaur hunting action. The next page continues the tips zone, this time focusing on Wave Race 64. It offers tips and tricks for the game, including how to unlock reverse tracks by completing the expert level. There are instructions for racking up massive scores on the stunt courses by pausing at the right moment and using the same racer in two-player mode with a neat little cheat. The page also dives into new stunts, like the double flip, helicopter stunt, and triple flip, giving the button combinations to pull them off. Finally, there's a dolphin trick to play as a dolphin in the game, and a speed burst tip for getting the perfect start. The page is punctuated with screenshots of the game, showing off those awesome, if slightly dated, water effects. This page is an advert to purchase old issues of Total 64 magazine. For £4.95 each, while stocks last, you can grab issues number 1 to number 4. Issue number 1 features an as guide to upcoming 97 games, with reviews of Super Mario 64, Wave Race, and Shadows of the Empire. Issue number 2 has a special showcase on Legend of Zelda, a first look at FIFA 64, and a full review of Turok, Dinosaur Hunter, plus Wave Race tips. Issue number 3 covers Doom 64 and Blast Corps, with reviews of FIFA 64 and a complete Turok solution. Issue number 4 offers in-depth reviews of Star Fox 64 and ISS Soccer 64, Doom 64 codes, and a War Gods pre-play. There's an order form to fill in with your name, address, and payment details. Geka. This page is an advert for Total 64 subscriptions. Subscribe and receive 12 copies for the price of 9. The page promises in-depth Nintendo 64 game reviews, tips, and solutions. Games like War Gods and Mario Kart 64 are shown as examples of the type of content featured, with Donkey Kong driving a kart on a cartridge surface. The next page is an advert for Total 64 subscriptions. Subscribe and receive 12 copies for the price of 9, and save. The page promises to deliver more magazines for less cash. There is a form to fill out with payment details to subscribe to the magazine. This page is a full-page advert for Ultimate Solutions, a guide to smashing all the big games. The magazine features solutions for Super Mario 64 and Soul Blade, covering Nintendo 64, PlayStation and Saturn games, and is on sale for £4.95. This page screams next month, with Duke Nukem 64 leading the charge as a preview. We are also promised an E3 special report, digging into all the juicy gossip from Atlanta. Reviews for Dark Rift and Hexen 64 are also in the works, promising the ultimate fighter for consoles and multiplayer medieval monster bashing. Plus, we get a taste of Yuke, Troublemakers, Robotron 64 and Clayfighter 63 in a third. So it's pretty much a sneak peek of what to expect from the 6th issue. Karju. The next page kicks off with a question: has the UK finally been noticed? Apparently James is hooked on Mario 64, and guess what? Other games have dropped in the UK. The reviewer, Justin, mentions that we're behind the rest of the world, but at least we're getting some multiplayer games to keep us busy. He mentions Wave Race 64 as the only game previously holding our attention for long, but now we've got International Superstar Soccer 64 and Mario Kart 64. He also suggests getting those official colored controllers for 4-player action and name drops Hexen 64, Duke Nukem 64, Star Fox 64, and Wayne Gretzky's 3D Hockey as great 4-player games on the horizon. Basically, if you're lucky enough to own an N64, you're in for some quality gameplay. Boy. This page is a full-page advert for PlayStation Solutions magazine. It highlights features such as guides for Wing Commander IV and Syndicate Wars, as well as coverage of games like Rage Racer, ISS Pro, Overblood, Need for Speed 2, and Jonah Lomu Rugby. It also advertises a competition with an £800 prize. The magazine was on sale for £3.95 in the UK and $6.95 in the US. The next page is a full-page advertisement for Total 64 magazine. It features Mario in his kart, with the words Total 64 prominently displayed. The advert includes the Rapid Publishing logo and contact information.